Welcome and thank you all for joining us today for our panel discussion on Optimize, Deploy, Perform, Proxim's Stratum series and tools for smarter wireless networks. Here to present from Proxim Wireless, their sales account manager, Eastern Region USA, Senior Systems Engineer, Frank Vorias, and their Senior Sales Systems Engineer, Andrew Hunter. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to add them into the chat and they will be addressed. Gentlemen, you're up.
Excellent, thank you very much. I'm Frank Vorias. Andrew Hunter is my counterpart and my colleague at Proxim. I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank Winncom. They were very gracious to set this up and to do this partner presentation with to go over our products. Don, thank you very much for making this happen. And we are going to go ahead and get started. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to pipe in, or we can just save them for the end. We really kind of want to make this as relatively as casual as possible. Sorry, I was clicking the spacebar to go to the next slide and it was messing with the presentation. Anyway, so today we're going to cover just basically our products. We're going to have a quick introduction about Proxim itself. It's just going to be a quick slide. We're going to go over our product portfolio, and then we're going to have a discussion on how sales can help our Proxim products can help your sales and help your partners, and then we'll go through some questions and answers. So Proxim has been around for well over 40 years. We've had millions of units in the field. We cover 90 countries. And realistically, I would say Proxim has been in the outdoor broadband wireless market longer than anybody in the world. Longer than even Motorola, because Motorola was not doing broadband initially. They were doing low UHF, VHF handheld stuff. So really when it comes to point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, outdoor broadband, nobody has been doing it longer or been around as long as Proxim Wireless has. Our product portfolio basically covers 4 different segments, 3.5 really, anyway. So we cover point-to-point for backhaul, which is basically connecting point A to point B. The radios come in 2 different flavors, which we will cover shortly. We have our point-to-multipoint, which is a single unit talking to multiple remote locations, and that could be up to 20 or 30 or 40, depending on really how much bandwidth each location needs. And we also have an outdoor rugged Wi-Fi access point, and that is a dual band access point, which we'll touch on a little bit as well. And then we have our network management suite, which is called Proxim Vision Advanced, which allows you to manage and monitor all the Proxim radios on your network, and it does integrate with Google Maps. So starting our product portfolio, for our point-to-point, we have 2 different products. They're called the Stratum series. And in the Stratum series, we have the X3 and the X5. The X5 is our higher capacity point-to-point only, with either a built-in antenna and connectors on the same unit, or just a connectorized unit. As you can see in the part numbers, the 1042 is the integrated antenna, the 1040 is the connectorized unit only. Then also for point-to-point, we have our Stratum X3. That also comes with an integrated antenna, and both of these are 1-foot panels, by the way. They're between 19 to 21 dBi, and also a connectorized variant of the Stratum X3. Then for point-to-multipoint, it's going to be the Stratum X3. The Stratum X5 is currently not available for point-to-multipoint, and we are considering it, but if it happens, it'll be in 2026. The Stratum X3 does come with a variant with a built-in 1-foot 90-degree sector antenna. That's the 1029B. So that covers a 90-degree coverage area with all your remote radios. If they're in there, then they can communicate back as long as they have line of sight. Then we have the remote radio for a multi-point, which could be the Stratum X3 as well, again with a built-in 1-foot panel, or with connectors, or just separately independent with connectors only, depending on what the application really is like. And then we have a lower cost solution, which is called the Stratum X1. And the Stratum X1 is a 15 dBi panel, and that talks back to a multi-point Stratum X3 base station. Then we have the outdoor rugged AP9200R. That is our Orinoco ruggedized dual band Wi-Fi access point. And it does 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. So it's 802.11 AC and 802.11N. And then as far as our network tools go that are available, as I mentioned, Proxim Vision Advanced is our network management software. That is downloadable, and there is a fee for it to use it. But when you download Proxim Vision Advanced, for a month, it'll work. It's the full-blown version, and it'll work for a month and allow you to manage or monitor 100 nodes. After the month ends, it still stays the full-blown version, but it limits you to only 4 nodes that you can look and monitor or manage at a time. Then you can purchase a license upgrade for it to unlock the unit for whatever, 25 nodes, 100 nodes, 500 nodes, whatever it might happen to be for you, and there's an associated fee. It's a one-time fee, so there's no annual re-up that's required. We have our link calculator and our BOM generator on our website, and we also have a utility called Scan Tool, which is a Proxim free utility, and even the link calculator and the BOM generator are free as well, and they will allow you to scan out for the Proxim radios.
Frank, can I interrupt for a second?
Please.
On the Stratum radios, as Frank was mentioning, anything that has an A associated with it also includes the reverse polarity SMA connectors. So it's a combination. It has the ability to operate with the internal antenna, but can also operate with an external antenna for scalability. So if you deploy to a location where the internal antenna is sufficient, later, if that radio system is redeployed to a new location and more gain is required, an external antenna can be added to that. So I wanted to make sure that when you look at the Stratum radios with the internal antenna, the built-on antenna, there also is it includes the SMA connectors for an external antenna.
Thank you. Thank you. So the Stratum X5, again, which is our high performance, this radio is capable of what's called 4x4 MIMO. So effectively, the antenna that's built into it is quad polarized. It has a horizontal, a vertical, and a V slant antenna. So it's basically 3 antennas built into one, or I guess you could call it 4, depending on how you want to look at the slant. And they allow you to basically send multiple streams across each of those, which increase the throughput significantly. But 4x4 MIMO is limited to about 500 meters. Once you get beyond that, then the radio is going to switch to 2x2 MIMO, which is dual polarized. The radios do support an operating channel widths of 20, 40, or 80 megahertz. By default, the radios do come with 128-bit AES encryption, and it has 256-bit AES encryption is built into the unit, but it requires a software license to unlock it. So there is a fee for that to unlock the 256-bit encryption. The Stratum X5 comes with a 2.5 gigabit and a 1 gigabit Ethernet interface, and it also comes with an SFP cage. The SFP cage allows you to basically either put in a single mode or a multi-mode fiber interface for up to 1.5 gigabit. The Stratum X3 is 2x2 MIMO only, so that's dual polarity and not quad polarity, like the Stratum X5. They both currently support 5.1 to 5.85 gigahertz. If you notice on the Stratum X5, it does not mention anything about the 6 gigahertz band, where the Stratum X3 does. And it's going to support the 5.9 through 7.125 gigahertz sometime in Q3, I would say mid to late Q3. I will be touching on the 6 gigahertz band shortly. So it's 2x2 MIMO, again, 20, 40, 80 megahertz channels, 128-bit encryption by default, 256 with the license upgrade. This unit, though, has 3 1 gigabit Ethernet interfaces, and one of them is a PoE out. This does not have the SFP cage for a fiber interface. And then we have the Stratum X1. The Stratum X1 is our compact, lower cost solution, and it is 5 gig and soon to also be available in 6 gig, 2x2 MIMO. Same thing, 20, 40, 80 megahertz channels, 128-bit AES by default, 256 with the license upgrade. And this one only has a single gigabit Ethernet interface. And this unit is limited to 500 megabits per second. And typically it would be open to where you would do, let's say, 250 up, 250 down. You do have the ability to change the input bandwidth and the output bandwidth, but it was going to be 400 and 100 would be the max. So you can't do like 450 inbound and 50 meg outbound. It would be 400 would be the max. and then 100, or 300 and 200, or 250 and 250. So they operate asymmetrically. So getting into the Stratum X5, as you can kind of see in this image on the smaller unit, you can see the connectors at the top and the connectors at the bottom. This is the front view. On the left image is of the front view of the panel antenna, but the back of the unit would look just like this, but also with the integrated antenna connected to it. So depending on what you really need to do and what kind of flexibility that you need with your network, you can use external antennas. And if you want to do quad polarity with external antennas, if you can find a single quad polarized external antenna, you can use that. There's not very many on the market currently at this time. So you do have the ability to use two dual polarized antennas. And you have one set horizontal vertical, and you do the other one on a V slant. And that's sort of like a mounting bracket that you can get. Those antennas happen to be RF elements. They're not really associated with us, but they make a good antenna. So this gives you that flexibility. But you have the ability here on the left, you can see that this is the unit with the integrated antenna, but you can still see the connectors on the back of that unit as well. The Stratum X3, as I mentioned, it can do point-to-point and it can do point-to-multipoint. To do point-to-multipoint, if you're not using the unit that has the built-in 90-degree sector, then it requires a software license upgrade to update the unit to allow it to talk to up to 64 clients. That also is just a one-time. Any of these upgrades are a one-time purchase, one-time fee, and then you own it. There's no relicensing, there's no annual or anything like that that is required. The multi-point base station for the Stratum X3, as I mentioned, it's a 90-degree sector, which means that it can cover a 90-degree piece of pie, and any of the radios that are within that 90-degree piece of pie that can see this base station's antenna will be able to connect to it. Line of sight is a requirement for this technology. There is what you might hear of near line of sight. And near line of sight is much more challenging. The radios and the chipsets support it, but it's very difficult to engineer for something that's near line of sight and then to be able to provide a partner or a customer with a specific expected amount of throughput. So can I take a link and shoot it and reflect the signal off a building to go down the other street to pick up to the other radio? Absolutely, I can do that. And will it work? Absolutely. But will I get 200 megabits? I have no idea. I might only get 5. This is nothing that's really going to be something that you can totally design and be able to give a guaranteed performance. So we really design for line of sight just to eliminate as much unknowns as possible. This way, when you're speaking to your partners or your customers, that you can basically give them a pretty confident number of what they can expect for performance. You know, once you start getting outside into near line of sight, there's no company that's going to be able to guarantee what the performance is going to be. The Stratum X3 is the same thing here. As the X5, you've got the unit with the connectors. You can use an external antenna. Here's just an image of how it looks like if you want to connect an external antenna to it on the right-hand side. As mentioned, the 1029B has the built-in 90-degree sector. The 1021 is just the built-in 1-foot panel, which is 10 degrees. And the Stratum X5 actually is 19 degrees for their 1-foot panel. So the Stratum X1, it's a low-cost multi-point CPE. So it does not have the ability to be a base station to talk to multiple remotes. It's only the remote CPE, subscriber, whatever you want to call it, customer premise equipment that would talk back to a multi-point base station. It has a 15 dBi, 30-degree integrated antenna. And as I mentioned, the throughput capabilities are asymmetrical, but it would be 400 and 100 as the max. So Proxim Vision Advanced is our network management suite. It is cloud-based. You can install it on a server. It does require a server. Now, if you're trying to only manage 20 units or something like that, you can pretty much put it on any kind of computer. But if you have a system where you're managing 500 or 1,000, or like in my example, I've actually got the New York City Police Department. They've got over 5,000 of our radios in NYPD and the boroughs backhauling all their video. That requires a very specific standalone server with very specific processors and 64 gigs of RAM and solid state hard drives. You don't want anything else on the computer because this program is going to be very intensive for the processor and the memory. But you can actually keep the server at one location, and you can actually manage and monitor networks that are around the country. as long as you have the IP information to input into the server so that it can see those networks, because it will not see across a router without the proper information. But it'll allow you to see all our Proxim radios, our Wi-Fi radios. You can see tests and let you know the link uptime. You can do firmware updates with it. As you can see, you can integrate it with Google Maps. So the nice thing about the firmware updates is you can select all the units. You can tell it to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when really nobody's using the system, and it'll upgrade all those and it'll reboot them. You can make global changes to the units. The only time you really would not make global changes would be something like an IP address, because each unit needs to have a separate IP. So if you wanted to change the encryption key globally, then you'd be able to do it. You could select every single unit and do that. It's also available in multiple languages: English, French, Spanish, and Chinese, although I don't think that really matters for this conversation. So really, what does Proxim, bring to the table? What is our market differentiation compared to other competitors to Proxim? And first off, not only have we been around longer than anybody, but our units are extremely rugged. They are IP67, which means that they are waterproof and dustproof, and they're also shockproof. You can power the unit up and submerge it in 3 feet of water for up to 30 minutes before any water would ingress into the units. They can withstand the coldest temperatures on the planet to the hottest temperatures on the planet. So we have them in locations like Alaska and northern Canada, Mount Washington, New Hampshire. We have them in marine environments with the Coast Guard and the Navy and cruise ships and ferry boats. And then we have them in desert environments, if you know who'd be using them there. So there really isn't an environment on the planet that will affect the units that would stop them from working. And you can expect these units to also work for 10 years. We've got most of our equipment stays deployed for more than 10 years. So really your total cost of ownership on it becomes cheap. It's almost, your return on investment, which is typically under a year, but even if it takes a couple of years, at that point, that considering that they can last you up to 10 years, you definitely make your money back, and they're a good way to spend your money. It's not like you're going to be having to upgrade the system every 2 or 3 years, which then you don't really see return on your money. Now the equipment is also extremely secure and stable. And what do I mean by that? So we mentioned already that they by default have 128-bit AES encryption. And yes, you can upgrade the encryption to 256 with a license upgrade. But one of the things about the Proxim radios, especially when we're talking about the Stratum X3 and the X5s and the X1s, the over-the-air communication is proprietary. It's not Wi-Fi. So a tablet, any kind of handheld device, a laptop, a cell phone, no Wi-Fi device can connect to our radios over the air wirelessly. They just can't. So that introduces another layer of security on top of the encryption. And that's another reason why we have a lot of the 3-letter agencies that like to use our product, because it's just so secure. So especially when it comes to critical information, whether it's banks, banking information, whatever it might happen to be. Like I said, we do a lot with police departments, chain of evidence quality video that's required. Our systems can support that. And also our customer support, I think personally is the best in the industry. I could let maybe Winncom can comment to that at a certain point as well. We can also give references. We do everything in our power to support our customers. Not only as our product has a 2-year warranty out of the box, but we still will help. And even if the product is out of warranty, you reach out to us. We're going to do everything in our power to help and get a link up and running. If the link has to be repaired, well, then it can be sent back for an RMA and it can be repaired. After the warranty, there is a fee for that. If it's within the warranty time, then there is no fee for it. But it could take potentially even up to 30 days, depending on how long you take to ship it. We fix it, then we ship it back ground. But we always also have what's called service packs. Our service packs can be purchased, they're per radio, or in some cases they're going to be per link, because we do have a quick bridge variant that's just been released of the Stratums that will be available basically at the beginning of next month. And the quick bridge variant would be, to be able to purchase it, would be per link. But our service packs will give you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year priority tech support. You go to the front of the line, you get a special phone number, and then we'll even do advanced replacement with the unit as well. So if we talk to you, we figure out, yes, there's something wrong with the unit, you've got the service pack, we will ship you out another unit you get it, you ship the faulty one back, and we're good to go. Keep in mind that there are times that we try to ship it within 24 hours or the next business day, but it depends on when that comes in. So if somebody reaches out to us at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., we're not going to be able to ship it out that day. If it happens on the weekend, we're not going to be able to ship it that day, but it would go on the next business day, but we do ship it ground. So if you do need it overnighted, then it would need to be covered, but then we would have the ability to overnight it so that you get that unit, fairly quickly within 24 hours, or 48 at the most. So typically as Proxim, our main targets are security integrators. We do electrical contractors, the federal government, whether they're state, we do Department of Transportation, Public Works, water districts. We typically handle all sorts of different enterprise networks, last mile WISP solutions, and smart city for ITS. So, our security integrators, we do a lot with transporting video over wireless, whether it's point-to-point or in a multi-point. And hands down, there is nobody in the industry that will transport video over wireless in a multi-point better than we will. Hands down. We have got it. The way our protocol, our over-the-air protocol works, which is called Warp, Wireless Outdoor Routing Protocol, the way it works is that no remote radio can talk back to the main base radio without permission. So it's impossible for you to get collisions on the RF interface because multiple remote locations are trying to talk back to the base at the same time. Our system won't allow that. If that were to happen, you would have collisions, which means you have packet loss, which means that you have retransmissions, which means your latency goes up. And by the way, if it's video, that's a UDP packet, that means it's lost. It's not like TCP where it's buffered and retransmitted. So that's part of the reason we've been so successful in New York City, and we've got, like I said, more than 5,000 radios at every intersection in Manhattan and on all the boroughs. They've got these boxes that are at the traffic lights with cameras in them, and they're all backhauled by Proxim radios. Typical enterprise networks as well, or even electrical contractors, as I mentioned, where in some cases it might be even in situations where you got construction sites and they want to put some cameras up to protect the sites from looters or people coming in. It's a simple way to put the cameras up around, and then you can just wireless backhaul to a specific trailer. Enterprise networks, whether you're extending your network and you're opening up another office across the street or a few blocks away, or if you're in a corporate park where maybe you've got 5 or 6 different suites and you want to interconnect them as opposed to doing leased lines, or maybe you can't run any kind of cable. It's just a great way to use us. It's cost effective and high capacity. Last mile WISPs, we've got quite a few WISPs that use us. For us, I would say for WISPs, we might not be the most competitively priced product, but we're absolutely the most reliable and best performing WISP product, especially if you talk dollars per megabits. There's nobody who even matches us. And then for smart city and ITS type networks, we even have situations where, and maybe Andrew, if you've got a second to just quickly mention about San Francisco Metro Transit and the buses. Do you have a moment that you can just touch on that?
Live video feed from cameras on the buses. They're passed from base station to base station, which are basically at almost every intersection. Depends on line of sight and terrain. San Francisco can be very hilly in places, so we have to increase the density of the base stations. But that's the premise. Is it's as the bus is on its linear route, it's being passed from one base station to the next for live video feed. We also have ITS implementations where we're doing multi-point from one intersection where your fiber or copper demarcation is down, say 6 intersections, all being picked up on one base station with 6 disparate subscribers. So we are able to spread out the signal, spread out our coverage area, and backhaul all of those sensor assets. A lot of the times we're used, City of San Jose, the Coachella Valley, for instance. Those 2 projects are traffic synchronization to keep things flowing, to save the environment and fuel and so forth. They're just basically synchronizing the signals, turning them on and off as needed, using the combination of video, loops in the road, and other types of sensors. You'll find us on highway systems, backhauling video, doing counters. Sometimes it's POS collection for, say, the toll road or toll lanes. So you'll find us in quite a bit, all over the world, essentially, in ITS implementations. Part of that is also, as mentioned earlier, it's our security as well as our reliability. ITS environments can be very, very harsh, and so having metal fin bases, IP67, we take great pride in the quality of our radio systems, and they will last a very long time roadside in all conditions, harsh weather, doesn't matter. So I think that covers it, Frank.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, and as mentioned, even the Department of Transportation, you know, I've got Florida DOT, Tennessee DOT, Indianapolis DOT, New Jersey DOT, Illinois. We're just everywhere where, you know, whether they're trying to backhaul some of the sensors that they've got, whether they're counting cars or whether they've got cameras along the highways that they want to bring back to a specific location so they can monitor the traffic, monitor for accidents, just monitor just in general. We've got tons and tons of those. Then getting into, which we discussed a little bit, is well, why are we used? Well, because we're reliable. As we just touched on, not only the units IP67, but they're all metal. So these are a metal enclosure. They're not plastic that are going to degrade over time because of the sun and the ultraviolet light being exposed to the elements. In fact, the Canadian Coast Guard was testing us along with 2 or 3 other companies, and before they basically standardized on a product to put on their Coast Guard ships. Back in the day, they were called cutters. I don't think they're called that anymore. And what they did is they basically took some units from us, and they took some units from each of these other 3 companies that they tested out, and they just put them and mounted them on their Coast Guard ships. They didn't even power them up or anything. They just mounted them and left them on there for a year. And after a year, they went back and looked at them, and the Proxim unit was the only unit that basically still looked new out of the box, where the rest of them were falling apart. So they standardized on us, and that's part of the reliability. So, you know, we are rugged. We are a carrier-grade product. We are designed to withstand the elements. We have them in quarries on rock trucks, so you can put them on these giant trucks that the wheels are taller than human beings as they're, you know, going up the dirt, and they're vibrating, and they're designed to be in very rugged environments and survive. The good thing about wireless as well is that you can deploy it within a day. I mean, look, let me clarify on that. It depends on how many radios, but you know, if you're doing a base and 5 remotes, you can have those installed in a day. Where if you're trying to trench and run fiber or run copper, it's going to take you much longer than a day, and it's likely going to be significantly more expensive. So it is definitely a rapid deployment, and on top of that, one of the things that it can be used in is that it can always just be used as a backup. So there are some situations where people, they want to run fiber, but they need to be up today, and they know that the fiber is going to take them 3 months to get done. So they put up one of our links now. They're up and connected immediately. Then they run their fiber, and then what they do is they leave us as a backup, you know, and we're sort of like set up as a monitor hot standby. Or if their switches support it, we just kind of do like a loading where they use us along with the fiber at the same time. So this way, if something ever happens to the fiber link, well, the wireless is still up and running. They don't really take it down. They just leave it, because again, the cost of the wireless is so inexpensive compared to running fiber or copper. It just makes sense to leave it in. Another way is with leased lines. We have some in New York City, as an example, with the New York City Metro Transit Authority. We do a lot of wireless with them, especially in their areas where the trains come in at the end of the day, and they all you know, park the big train yards, and they've got cameras all around them to protect them, to make sure people aren't breaking in, stealing, anything like that. And some of the guard shacks, they've got a leased line for the guard and his computers and stuff like that, where they're now in the process of looking at getting rid of those leased lines and just doing wireless backhauls that they can add, because they've already got them anyway in there for picking up other locations that aren't guard shacks. So we've been talking to them, and it just makes sense to just add another radio, and now they're added on. Now they've just saved themselves however much money it costs them as New York City MTA to the carrier per month for that, you know, lease line for those 3 different guard shacks that got around the property, each one having its own LTE line. As I mentioned, it's a good backup to fiber. So, you know, depending on what they want to do, if they still want to run the fiber, well, you can run the wireless first, get it up and running, get you running today, and then by the time the fiber is done, boom, you got it as a backup. Or you can just put it if the fiber is already there, but you want to back up. It's a great, it's a great addition to it. And any kind of network extension as well. So, similar in a way, I suppose, like for a WISP. But just as I mentioned before, if you happen to be in a business park and you've got a few suites, and then you're expanding as your company, and now you've taken up a few other suites that are like right across the street or a few streets down, you can pick those guys up and extend your private network, your own internal network, and not really, again, have to get lease lines. So as we kind of touched on, some of the most common applications we are used for backhaul. Backhaul can also incorporate multi-point, because you are backhauling information, whether it's A to B or it's A to B to C to D, all those looking back to A. We really excel and specialize in security and video over wireless. As I mentioned, we do, I would say, a majority of my business alone personally that I deal with, I would say 60%, if not 70%, is because we're doing video over wireless, because again, we do it better than anybody. As mentioned, smart city, ITS, whether it's traffic light control, whether it's video inside buses. We've got mobility with trains, and even like although not in San Francisco, but like the streetcars in San Francisco, but we've got them in Europe and in Spain, where they've got cameras in those cars that are going along the tracks, and we've got our subscriber radios on those that communicate back to a base station radio. And as that trolley train is going up the tracks through the city, it's connected. And at their main headquarters, they can see all the videos live. So, we've really got a lot of great capabilities. And as well as mentioned, going into the last mile, which we've already touched on, and last mile can encompass, WISPs. So this is sort of our ecosystem, whether it's backhauling, whether it's last mile, whether you're doing to ITS, whether you're dealing with video surveillance, or even connecting back to a small cell access point. Our link calculator is downloadable for free. You can get the utility on our website. Not only does it have that, but it also has the ability to generate a BOM for you. It's got a quote generator that you can download as well. And that can also integrate with Maps, Google Maps. Now, the one thing that we did not touch on, which I'm going to discuss now, is 6 gigahertz. 6 gigahertz was just recently released, and I don't know if you can hear my computer beeping here. I'm sorry about this. I don't know why it's doing this. That's my USB. Anyway, 6 gigahertz is what we're going to call a light license frequency. So the FCC went ahead and opened it up, and it's really from 6.1 through 7.125, but we're going to say from 5.9 through 7.125 gigahertz. What they did is they opened up that spectrum to be able to be utilized by products like ours, but they are not allowed to interfere with any licensed 6 gigahertz links. These licensed 6 gigahertz links are ones that are backhauls that are doing 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles. They use 6-foot antennas. They're 300 feet up on towers or taller. So those links are likely not going to be interfered with, and they're not going to interfere with us, but we're not allowed to because they're licensed. So what happens with 6 gigahertz is that it needs to connect to what's called an AFC server, an automatic frequency coordination server. So in the 6 gigahertz units, there's going to be some IP information that's put in there that allows it to connect to the AFC server. So if you do not have a connection, they won't link and they won't even come up, because this is required by the FCC. The AFC server is currently, 2 of the companies that are controlling them that the FCC gave is Qualcomm, who makes the chipsets, ours specifically, and also ComSearch. We're going to be dealing with ComSearch. Now, that license, there is a license fee for the multi-point units and the point-to-point units at 6 gigahertz. And that license fee, we included in the price. So basically what happens is we absorb it. The price is the price. So if you have the units, it basically covers them for 8 years. But if you've got the link for 15 years, Proxim will cover that fee. So the customers, it's going to be transparent and hidden to them. They don't ever have to see this licensing fee. Where other companies, they build it in, other ones, they expect you to pay it, and you have to kind of handle that. It's also really cheap, honestly. It's like 2 cents per radio. It's something dumb. In fact, I kind of think it's doesn't make a lot of sense considering all the work that's required for 2 cents per radio, but hey, we'll take it. So, but don't forget, it does need to be able to be connected to a AFC server. Now, the subscribers, the CPE units, there's going to be sort of 2 variants in it, meaning in how you configure them. A low power and a high power. If you're using low power, the subscribers do not need to connect to the AFC server. If you're doing a high power, the subscribers also need to connect to the AFC server. They connect to it along with the base. The AFC server looks, it sees its GPS coordinates because it's got all that information in there. It sees where it is. It looks at a list, and then it sends this list of all the channels that base station can use, and it puts it on one of those channels, and you're good to go. The nice thing about 6 gigahertz, it's basically a pristine spectrum, which will allow you to put radios on extremely wide channels. So you'll be able to all of a sudden realize, 800 megabits or a gigabit, or depending on the product you're using, of true throughput. You won't be limited to using the smaller channels like 20 megahertz. Like at 5 gigahertz, a lot of times you get limited to 20 megahertz channels because there's so much interference. Finding, 40 or 80 megahertz of concurrent channels can be challenging. Where at 6 gigahertz, that won't be the case. It's just going to be totally available. You'll be able to do wide channels, and you'll be able to do high capacity. Also, they have a GPS built into the unit, and a GPS antenna ships with the unit as well. So that this way it can connect to the GPS. It'll get the information, it gets the heights, it gets everything exactly at that location, so that when it communicates to the AFC server, then the AFC server can let it know exactly what channels that it can be on and to go on. And it has to reach out to that AFC server every 24 hours. So anybody who is concerned about that, well, because the fact that they're saying that now the unit has to go out to the network, well, they really shouldn't be, because the communication between the radio and the AFC server uses TLS 1.3, which is extremely secure protocol. It's the same protocol that if you're doing your banking online. It's a tunneled communication between the radio and the AFC server. Nobody can hop onto it. It can't be used as a backdoor to get into the network from, let's say, the AFC server side to get in and then to get into the network. It's not possible. So that, I believe, Andrew, did I forget anything on 6 gigahertz?
I think that covers it. Maybe there's some questions about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time, everybody's valuable time. I hope I did this quick enough to keep everybody interested. And again, I would really like to thank Winncom and Don for making this happen. And please, if you have any questions.
It doesn't look like any questions have come through. If you don't mind, I'd just like to say thank you to the both of you, the presenters, as well as a quick reminder to our listeners. We will be sending out an email shortly with all the information you just learned, so please keep an eye out for that. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Don. Thanks, Andrew. Much appreciated. We're here. My contact information will be in this presentation, so if anybody needs to reach out, please feel free to. Thank you.